Hello, everyone. Welcome to another special episode of Radio Offside. I'm Morteza, and with me today, I'm delighted to be talking to a very exciting guest. He's the author of books such as LA, 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 Ring of Fire, and Men in White Suits. He also writes for The Athletic and mainly covers Liverpool FC. It is an utmost honor for me to introduce Simon Hughes. Simon, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and welcome to our podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, and so I'm going to start off with a big question for football fans and Liverpool fans. Do you have any news on the restart of Premier League? Have they made any progress in their decision-making and plans? How does it look like now that Bundesliga has reopened too?
Well, only in the last hour, we're speaking on Monday, that they've announced that it's okay to go back to training tomorrow. So that is a bit of progression, I think. The players won't be able it won't be contact training just yet, but they'll be able to go back in their squads and train in a more refined way than normal. So that is progress, I suppose. They're still trying to figure out when the league will actually resume again. I think some of the managers feel at the moment that the date that was mentioned, the 12th of June, might come a little bit too soon to make sure that all the players are fully fit and able to perform to a decent standard. So that might be pushed back potentially to the week after, but I think it'll become a lot clearer by the end of the week because there's a lot more meetings going on involving the managers, the players, and the authorities. So yeah, it's just one small step back to something that resembles normality today.
And so what are Liverpool's plans for getting players ready again? Have they started trainings? How are they planning to cope with it?
Yeah, well, the team have been in regular contact through Zoom, which everybody seems to be using at the moment, and they've had access to the individual trainers who've been able to guide them as well. So the players should have a relatively decent standard of fitness. You know, that they've been running and they've been exercising and yoga and everything else. I know some of the players have got big enough back gardens to do some drills as well. I've seen pictures and videos of Alisson Becker diving about in his back garden. So yeah, I mean, I think it does feel like that it's going to be a strange sort of restart, because obviously at the moment there's been it doesn't look like any team is going to be able to have any sort of pre-season matches. It'll be sort of straight back in. So there'll be a big reliance on training matches at Melwood between Liverpool's first team and the players that wouldn't be expected to play, which happens every week anyway, really. Towards the end of every week, the first team will play sort of the shadow team, if you like, and it's a competitive match. You know, players are meant to, Jurgen Klopp doesn't want any half measures. You know, the team who both sides are expected to sort of play to a standard that would win them the game. So I think that there'll be extra emphasis on that. I know I've heard a few rumours about what Liverpool have got in store behind the scenes in terms of very specialist one-to-one training and group training. But yeah, I think I'm between James Pearce, who's a reporter at The Athletic, and myself, I'm sure we're going to be writing about that in the next few weeks. So I don't want to say too much just about that just yet. But yeah, I mean, Liverpool have had a lot of, like every football club, have had a long time to think about what the future might look. So I'm sure they will be as prepared as possible. I mean, I watched the Bundesliga matches at the weekend, and I was actually quite impressed by the level of fitness and the sort of the technical abilities and everything else. The only thing that was missing really was the crowd. If you could separate yourself from the it's quite surreal surroundings of the stadium, then it did look like a proper football match as far as I was concerned. Certainly the Dortmund Schalke game that I watched was very high standard. So yeah, I mean, I would expect Liverpool's got to be one of the fittest teams in the league, haven't they? They've done a lot of work behind the scenes about fitness and injury prevention, and I'm sure that they'll be ready to go as and when required.
Yeah. And my next question is about the city. I mean, they have been expecting this for a long time. After a long wait, now they were winning the league in style, truly in style. And all of a sudden, all these things happened. And I don't think celebrations would be feasible, would be happening. How is the city coping with this and also with the whole COVID-19 lockdown and everything?
Yeah, well, as a city, the Liverpool, the rates of infection are very high in Liverpool, or higher than other parts of the country. Certainly, the northwest has struggled to keep the rate of infection down over the last couple of months. And it's hard to be definitive about it, but there is absolutely no doubt that the Liverpool match against Atletico Madrid should never have taken place in Liverpool when it did in March. It was just a time bomb waiting to go off. And I think the city suffered as a consequence of it. The city's already under pressure because the lack of support that it gets from the central government, which has been the case for a long time, but particularly over the last 10 years. I've got a lot of sympathy with the local council and the tough decisions that they've got to make. But the people are pretty resilient, aren't they? And I do think that, it's to Liverpool fans' credit, really. It's not for me to corral the fans and say how wonderful they are all the time, but I do think they've been pretty sort of philosophical about the way things have transpired, really. I haven't seen too much complaining. At the end of the day, a lot of people, including myself, who've been sort of following the club, and I've never seen a team win the title to have this sort of the march to a historical moment interrupted and arguably, I think it has been spoiled, hasn't it, by bigger events in the world. I think people have been, people have been pretty calm about it and understanding that that there's bigger issues at play here. So, there's been a lot of conversation about how would the city react if Liverpool to win the league. I mean, this has never been tested before, has it? Nobody knows how anybody's going to react in this situation. I mean, the idea that Liverpool fans are going to turn up en masse outside Anfield to a game that they can't get into, it just doesn't seem to add up to me. It doesn't seem to make much sense, particularly with some of the travel restrictions in place, and particularly with, the understanding that the city has been suffering for a number of weeks. I think people are a bit smarter than that. I'd like to give people a bit more credit. That said, I think it does need, proper management. And I know that the club have been liaising with a lot of fan groups to try and, or one particular fan group to try and ensure that the right messages get across. Now it just needs the support of the local government to try and make people realise the potential dangers of turning up. I mean, you're never going to be able to stop everybody turning up. There will be one or two people that do, but it's how you manage. It's how you manage that, I think. And I know that the local governments, and I know that the authorities have got a lot more on the plate at the moment. There's so much going on in the world, but I just feel with football generally, people ask, why should football be continuing at this time? But it obviously hasn't continued. It has stopped and it's taken breath. I just think that, if they don't find a way to finish the season, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to argue that football should resume in any form until there's a vaccine. What's acceptable to people? Is it going to go down to 100 deaths a day? That's still appalling, really, isn't it? But they've got to find a way, I think, because the economic reality of all the clubs, if it doesn't continue this season, there's going to be a major fallout. And I think some people might like to think that there'd be a realignment of finances and stuff like that, but it's going to come at the expense of a lot of even more suffering if they don't. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, really, weeks and months ahead to see what happens. But in terms of projecting anything, in the medium to long term, unless this season gets finished, I think that there's going to be a lot of problems ahead for a lot of football clubs, a lot of workers as well. A lot of people whose livelihoods are attached in some small way to football. So yeah, hopefully they'll be able to get it done in the most safe possible way, which doesn't jeopardise the future of a lot of people.
Yeah, and I have to say this, that football definitely owes the city of Liverpool celebration ceremony for the title. Definitely, that's something that the
Maybe one
football will, hopefully one. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit now and talk about Liverpool's Sport and the FSG. Well, they recently made a controversial announcement about making the decision to put half of their non-playing staff on furlough, and then because of public pressure, they took that back. And then there was a pretty similar situation almost a year ago with the trademark thing that they had a story. But then we know that they've had a huge success at the club. And it's going to be almost a decade where they've been at the helm at Liverpool. So I wanted to know how you evaluate the decade. How has it been as a Liverpool fan and a reporter there?
Yeah, I think, that they've done that they have progressed the club. The club is not recognisable from the condition that they inherited the club. It was in a really bad way, and they professionalised a lot of the off the field activities. They've not only done that, they've built a new stand, which has helped the club grow financially as well, whilst maintaining the historical links to Anfield. They've appointed a world-class manager who has delivered the biggest trophy in football to Liverpool. Been to 2 finals. Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp's the biggest thing the biggest, most important recruitments that they've made at Liverpool. I mean, I think they've done an absolutely superb job, largely. I mean, but they still make mistakes. I think there's discussion around FSG as in anything relating to football, and life seems to be very black and white and very binary at the moment, when, the reality is they've done, as far as I'm concerned, a fantastic job on a lot of different levels, but they still, from time to time, maybe every year, once a year, make a bit of a clanger publicly. And, that doesn't help the perceptions, I think, of what they're about. I mean, I've been told, by various people who work for the owners of the football club, and it's true that every single penny that they earn goes back into the football club. The ultimate aim for them is to increase the value of the football club. So one day whenever they decide to sell, the value of Liverpool's much, 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 much higher than it was when they bought. I mean, they got it at a bargain price. So it exists in a real economy. That they're not taking money out of the club like previous owners were accused of, and owners of other football clubs. They've done everything very responsibly. But sometimes I do think that that they've made errors which haven't helped the perception of who they are. And that the latest one was the furlough one. I mean, I took particular frustration at that decision, mainly because Liverpool as a club tries to monetize the idea that it's more than just a football club. That this means more, that mantra, and you'll never walk alone. And they've made money out. The club will make money off that sort of ideal. It's sort of it's a I suppose it's a socialist idea, but that they've monetized that idea, which I'm fine with. I'm absolutely fine, because that's the way the club the club needs money. But to then say, well, this is what we are, and then at the first sign of a challenge to make a lot of working people somebody else's financial priority, it's a contradiction to me. It doesn't add up, and I can understand sort of arguments about this around football. Personally, I think football clubs have got just as much right as any other business to go and furlough staff if that is what needs to be done to protect workers' jobs. Bear in mind, there are other football clubs who, and Liverpool included, there are other businesses which earn far bigger, higher rates of turnover than Liverpool, and they're furloughing staff. So why should a football club not be allowed to do the same thing? It to some extent it is responsible, but I just feel that with Liverpool being sort of trying to separate itself from other football clubs and profiteering from this idea that it's a different football club, to then be one of the first to go and do something that is in line with, you've only got to be looking at the other clubs that were trying to do this. Newcastle United, Mike Ashley, Tottenham, Daniel Levy. It's the same, it's not surprising those people are doing it. So I just think that, that they get themselves involved in a bit. I think I sort of called it an identity crisis when I wrote about it. And, they obviously made a decision to backtrack on that, which is a shame. I think because, it's a shame that the whole episode unravelled the way it did. I think that the one bit of sort of sympathy that I do have with Liverpool is that, well, I don't know whether sympathy is the right word, but they clearly had an idea of doing this on their own terms, but I think were outmanoeuvred by a Premier League club who they foolishly informed that they were planning to do it at the Premier League meeting, which there are people who are responsible for that at the club. I'm not going to start naming names now, but I'm pretty certain I know who that was, who made that mistake. And it's just a bit of a mess, really. And I think that it shows you the beauty of Liverpool as well, that sort of the fans will sort of, they will back their club, but they'll be critical of the club as well. That doesn't happen everywhere to the level it does at Liverpool. I think that, there's this ongoing battle between what the fans, local fans particularly, want it to be and what the club is. When Liverpool, when the ecosystem of Liverpool sort of connects in the way and fuses in the way that it can, the club can be an unstoppable force, really. So it's a shame, really, the same mistakes year on year keep on happening. Hopefully they'll decrease with time. Because as I said, I think they are really responsible owners. There are things that they could do, some things they could do better, but generally, they've done a very good job.
Yeah, and I really liked how the fans backed up the staff and stood against the decision and how it actually worked. And I think that's something that we don't see as much with other clubs and their fans. Yeah. Having that power and having that ability to make these differences and decisions made by the boards. So that was a great thing about Liverpool and Liverpool fans. So you mentioned how they brought Jurgen Klopp and a new era has started. Definitely has been, if not the most successful manager in the world or in Europe, one of the most successful managers. But my question is that after winning the Champions League last year, he had that opportunity to bring in some new players, fresh blood, if you might say. But he didn't use that transfer window. Why was that, and do you think he will regret it? Especially given the fact that the transfer window is a bit iffy now. We don't know what's going to happen with it.
I don't think he'll have any regrets. No, I mean, I've said this a few times, but one of the reasons why I think Jurgen Klopp was, he's just won the Champions League. He's pretty happy with his squad. It's not exactly an aging squad. They're all at a ripe age. Nobody wanted to leave. He was able to do at Liverpool what he hadn't been able to do at Dortmund, where they'd reach a certain point, win the Bundesliga, but they'd always have players that were sold, to Bayern Munich, to Real Madrid, one or two other clubs. And at Liverpool, Klopp's been able to keep the squad together because I think, what he's achieved at Liverpool, let's be, Borussia Dortmund are a very big football club, but Liverpool, they don't have the history of Liverpool in terms of the success and the possibilities that can happen at Liverpool. So, all the players that won the Champions League, plus, it's a very strong bench as well. It's very difficult to go and sign a player who is actually going to improve this team, I think, so whilst also accounting for the individual developments of some of the younger players who we've seen this season, Curtis Jones looks like a very exciting player to me. Nico Williams has been the surprise package of the season, if you like, somebody who wasn't even on the club's tour of North America and is now, if you were to put him in a Premier League game instead of Trent Alexander-Arnold, I don't think too many people would be worried about that. So he's got a greater understanding of what's coming up behind the first team as well. Liverpool have done a lot of hard work with the youth system over the last 5 to 10 years, and it's now with a manager in charge who's willing to give opportunities. I think Jurgen Klopp would much sooner give a younger player an opportunity who he thinks has got a great chance than go out and sign somebody for 70 or 80 million who might be in his mid-20s but isn't automatically going to play every week. So, Harvey Elliott's another one, Ryan Brewster. These players, they've all got a future at Liverpool, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bit more of them. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp wouldn't have been able to foresee a pandemic, so I don't think he's not the sort of person to think, we should sort of done things a bit differently. I mean, the reality is that Liverpool might not have as much money to spend, but clubs equally, it might be impossible for them to keep hold of players because their own financial positions have been weakened by this what's going on at the moment. So it's very hard to gauge at this moment what it all means, I think, until when this season gets finished, and B, when the new season begins again, and how that works in terms of, there's obviously for a while there's not going to be any fans allowed inside stadiums. This all has an impact, on spending capacities, particularly at Liverpool, for the reasons that I've mentioned before, where the club is in a very real economic world where, every £2 or £3 million has an impact on what they can and can't do. So we will see. I mean, I suppose you're going to ask me about Timo Werner, somebody who, Liverpool are very keen to sign. My answer to it, it's not sitting on the fence, but it's quite clear that Jurgen Klopp wants to sign the player. I think one of my colleagues at The Athletic, David Ornstein, wrote the other day that he'd actually had some conversation with Timo Werner before this epidemic. But, as I said, until they know when the new season is to start again and how it's all going to work, I just don't think clubs are going to be committing 70, 80 million pounds on footballers at this moment. But it's quite clear that Liverpool want to sign him, and it's quite understandable why. He's a top class player who wants to join Liverpool, and secondly is going to be playing in a position where Liverpool might be light on numbers next season in the winter when Salah and Mane go off to the Africa Cup of Nations. If that tournament gets played as well, we don't know yet. So there's so many things that we don't know, but we will see. I would suspect that it'll become a bit clearer even when this season finishes, and when we know when next season is going to start again and what that season is going to look like. I think it'll be a lot clearer how his future looks and how Liverpool's transfer plans look at that point.
Yeah. And do you think he will be able to reach a status like Sir Alex Ferguson? And I know this might not be the best comparison for Liverpool and Man United former manager, but will he be given the chance to stay there for that long? And will he be able to sustain the success that he has achieved in the past couple of years?
Well, I mean, I've got to be honest, I was quite surprised when he signed a new long-term contract just before Christmas, because the indications were, that he sort of feels, judging by his own experiences of previous jobs, 7 or 8 seasons is a long time to be managing any club. But I think he realises now at Liverpool, I touched on before, that the opportunity there is different to other opportunities in the, I think he's excited about building a second team, for example. He's never been able to do that in football at Mainz or in Dortmund because players were always taken away from him. So I think he feels now that he can do this on his terms rather than having players taken away. So, yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, I know that the club, his relationship with the club is very good, and his relationship with Mike Gordon, who's a crucial figure at FSG, is one of the closest you can imagine between a manager and a part owner. So as long as that remains and they can see evidence of progress, you're not going to see Liverpool looking to make changes. Alex Ferguson, to manage that for that length of time, whether that will happen in football again, I'm not sure, just because of this constant demand for new and exciting figures. But on a personal level, Jurgen Klopp's been manager for 5 years, and every time the Liverpool team sets foot onto the pitch, I'm excited about what may happen. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. So as long as that continues, I don't think there's going to be that much demand for people, for changes. he's always had concerns about, does his voice still carry, does those messages that he's very emphatic about, with players, would the players get bored of that? Well, I think at this moment in time, I mentioned before that the age of the squad is pretty similar. There's a lot of players who are sort of 26, 27, 28. I think he'll be looking within the next 2 to 3 years to start really getting the next group of players ready for the next cycle, which includes a lot of the youth team players that I've been mentioning before. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any chance of his voice going missing then, because there'll be new people who will hang on his every word. So, I would like to think he'll stay for a lot longer, but how long, it's always very difficult to predict, because, as we know, football is very volatile, and whether he will think at the age of, I don't know, sort of 60, whether he'd want to do something else with his life and take himself away from the pressure of managing a club the size of Liverpool. Who knows? Who knows how he'll feel in a few years' time?
Yeah. And is there anyone in particular that you see as being a successor to him, or you would like to see coming in if he leaves? And it's not going to happen soon, but anytime.
That's a tough question. I mean, it's not something I've given too much thought to. I mean, it depends on the manner of his exit, I suppose, doesn't it? If the team and his methods have stopped working for a period of time, and there might be a demand for a fresher voice, a fresher direction, they may go and do something that's different. That's what clubs tend to do. But I think the best clubs always try and agree to exit points at the right time, which means that the person coming in doesn't have to change everything and start a new project, if you like. So, I mean, the two obvious candidates I would say would be, Thomas Tuchel has gone to Borussia Dortmund and done a great job there, and then gone to Paris Saint-Germain, done a great job there. He's a different sort of manager to Jurgen Klopp, but he's used to obviously succeeding his teams and finding a different way. But the other one would be Julian Nagelsmann, who at Red Bull, Bulls Leipzig, who is somebody who shares an agent with Jurgen Klopp. So I know that he's got good guidance, and obviously there's a good connection between his representatives and Liverpool already. So that would be another one. But I think that he might need a few more years' experience, getting a team into a winning cycle of winning trophies, because I think that's what separates Klopp really, is that he knows how to win. He knows. I know he's lost a lot of finals, but he does know how to win as well. So I think he'd have to, both him and Tuchel. Tuchel's won the French league, but a big, I think he'd have to maybe get a Champions League behind him just to know how to get that team across the line. And same with Nagelsmann. But it's still maybe a few years along from where I'm this conversation now. This might not become a reality for quite a long time. So maybe by then, some of these managers might be ready, and who knows, somebody like Steven Gerrard may have, I haven't even mentioned Steven, who I'm sure would love to manage Liverpool. But again, I think he's very conscious of doing it at the right time, and having, I know he's been successful as a player, but would want to have some success behind him as a manager as well. So just gives him that bit more experience of knowing how to manage situations at different times. So those three would be my shortlist in 2020. It might be a different shortlist in 2025 or whenever that sort of scenario pans out.
Great. And my final question: I know you're a Gerard Houllier fan, or you like him at least. If you were to choose between the current squad and the 2001 treble-winning squad, which one would be your favorite?
Oh, this squad, I think, is the best that I've seen. I mean, it's this team. I think certainly from a Liverpool, being from Liverpool, understanding what the people want to see. Gerard Houllier built a very physical, well-organised team that knew how to win. I think Jurgen Klopp has built that, plus some more with skill. Slightly more exciting brand of football. There's just so much to admire about this Liverpool team, I think, and it's the most exciting team that I've ever seen play for Liverpool. I'd say maybe the back end of Benitez, when They finished second in 2008-9. That was an exciting team, but he didn't have the squad to go that extra distance. There was still there was one or two players short, I think, in that era. One or two of those players, I think, would definitely get into this team. Like sort of, you could argue any of these players, from 2001, Steven Gerrard, Jamie Carragher, Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler, probably not Fowler actually, but I'd say those three players, Didi Hamann, they'd all have a great chance of getting into this team. I would imagine Marcus Babbel was a fantastic footballer, but and certainly, the midfield players from the 2008-9 team, they'd all have a chance. Mascherano would play for Jurgen Klopp, no doubt about that. Alonso might find it a bit more difficult because of the demands of everything, but I'm sure that he could play Jordan Henderson's role, no problem at all. So I just think that the sort of the organisation of this team is there, the skill is there. They're always on the front foot. They always go and try and win games of football, which is maybe a bit different to who they were sometimes. Under Julian and Benitez, they'd try and contain the opposition, which is fine, totally fine with that. But for me, this team is the best team that I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, definitely one of the best, at least one of the best teams of the decade, not saying of the century. Could be one of the best teams of the century.
I'd say so. I mean, the teams that you look towards, obviously, any of the Alex Ferguson teams, which went up against Arsenal, who obviously went the whole season unbeaten, the Mourinho Chelsea team, the obviously Guardiola Man City, Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool are in that sort of category. I think they have to obviously win the league title to be said, well, you're in that, because obviously all those teams won that title, the Premier League title, but they're not far off. They're definitely not far off, and maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, hopefully when we've got football and life back normal, we'll have this conversation and we can say definitively that they are, because they're pretty unstoppable, aren't they, Liverpool? I mean, some of the records that they've set over the last 3 or 4 seasons have just been incredible. That the pace at which they play, just unbelievable. I mean, just talking about it now makes me a bit sad that we're not able to watch it, and it was such an exciting period for the club, and I just hope that obviously the world gets back to some degree of normality, and that the football plays a big part in that.
Great. Thank you so much, Simon. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I know you're really busy, but hopefully we'll see you back here again.
Yeah, give me a shout anytime. No worries.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Cheers.